Isn't it fab when Hollywood surprises us all with a really great movie out of nowhere? This year has had its fair share of flops: The Dark Tower, Alien Covenant, Ghost in the Shell, Baywatch, Flatliners, Justice League, and some might say Suburbicon. But there've also been just as many films we thought would suck, but actually didn't. They invited low expectations for a number of reasons. The marketing was dull or uninspired, and the cast and crew didn't inspire much confidence either, or it simply didn't work well on paper. In the end, though, the doubters were proved wrong, with each of these films being among the best big-budget studio releases of the year, delivering above and beyond what anyone expected. It's a testament to the power of pessimism and the importance of keeping an open mind. I'm Rue from Whatculture, and brace yourself, because these 10 films from 2017 were unexpectedly awesome. In number 10, It. Ahead of its release, fans of the 1990 Tim Curry TV movie insisted that this new version from Mama director Andy Muschietti would fall short of the original's iconic appeal. Bearing in mind its first writer-director, Cary Fukunaga, gotta be careful with that one, quit due to creative differences, Warner Brothers seemed as if it might have been leaning away from the riskier areas of Stephen King's novel to aim instead for a general, easily marketable horror flick. But boy, were we wrong. It actually turned out to be one of the best big-budget studio horror films of the last few years. A slickly stylish, bracingly intense, and superbly acted film that did an admirable job of highlighting the real human terror of its source material. The film was so well executed that it left fans optimistic for the upcoming second part, which, with its adult-centric story and sillier shenanigans, will prove much more challenging to adapt. Plus, if you haven't watched the TV movie recently, watch it again. It hasn't aged well, and this glossy update effortlessly smokes it. 9. Captain Underpants, the first epic movie. For many, the title alone generated low expectations. No movie called Captain Underpants could be anything more than a daft, forgettable, low-effort animated romp. Director David Soren's previous animated film was the mediocre snail-themed Turbo. It was easy to be skeptical about writer Nicholas Stoller scripting a kids' film too, considering most of his prior output had been R-rated comedies, with his few divergences into family-friendly fare remembered as underwhelming. But never mind all that. Captain Underpants turned out to be an unexpectedly clever and stunning animation, overflowing with emotion and doing solid justice to Dav Pilkey's novel. Using several different animation techniques to exhibit its unhindered imagination, this is one of the year's best animated films, packed full of gags for the adults as well. 8 is Split. M. Night Shyamalan's recent outing, The Visit, served up a low-key return to form, but it was still tough to be optimistic about him tackling traditional genre filmmaking with this James McAvoy thriller. Many cinema-goers simply refused to believe that Shyamalan could be trusted with a high-concept thriller after bungling so many recent attempts. The Visit could very well have been a fluke, with Split failing to exploit a dishy premise. But plot twist, it was great. If The Visit made it clear that the filmmaker was still capable of quality work, Split showed that he's a lot more comfortable in the lower budget arena, where he can exercise full creative control over the end product. James McAvoy gives one of his best performances to date in this delicious little thriller, which does a fantastic job at keeping the viewer on the edge right up until that howler of an ending. Shyamalan is back, baby, and the 2019 follow-up Glass can't come soon enough. 7. Power Rangers. It should have sucked. The marketing for Power Rangers suggested it was the latest cynical attempt to adapt a beloved pop culture property into a mammoth blockbuster franchise, especially with its Transformers vibe and 6-movie deal. But what were we thinking? The fans loved it, and with good reason. Power Rangers boasted an unexpected commitment to character development and refused to rush the heroes into their suits. It was surprisingly human, all told, a heartfelt film that served up tons of ridiculous action in its third act. Critics were pretty mixed on the film, and sure, it has its issues, but it captured the spirit of the original series while reinventing it for a 2017 audience. It's a damn shame it bombed at the box office, because now all prospects of a sequel are long gone. At 6, Brawl in Cell Block 99. With Vince Vaughn primarily a comedian actor, and his recent foray into serious acting on True Detective proving divisive, it was hard to be optimistic about him in the role of a tough-as-nails prisoner in S. Craig Zahler's new thriller. Zahler's previous film, Bone Tomahawk, became a cult hit for its savage violence and slow pace, but it was hard to see his deliberate, ultra-violent style meshing well with Vaughn's acting. But what a pleasant surprise this was! Vaughn delivers probably the best performance of his career. He's thoroughly convincing as this hulking brute of a man, no doubt aided by Zahler's darkly comic writing and brutal direction. And while the film's willfully trashy narrative will prevent it from winning many year-end awards, it's a terrific example of ordinary material executed in an extraordinary way. 5. Only the Brave. Movies based on real-life tragedies are always risky, and with style over substance filmmaker Joseph Kosinski at the helm, responsible for Tron Legacy and Oblivion no less, it wasn't easy to believe he could deliver a truly respectful and heartfelt tribute to the men who died during 2013's Yarnell Hill fire. But it was easily the best of Kosinski's 3 films to date. Only the Brave melds his stylish visuals with an earnest emotional script and a fantastic supporting cast. It does a great job with character development, and when disaster strikes, it sure is a spectacle to behold, all the way up to that devastating finale. It's this year's Deepwater Horizon, an unexpectedly sensitive and technically impressive dramatization of a truly horrific real-world event. Number 4 is The Babysitter. Considering that McG has made only one remotely decent film, Charlie's Angels, and that was almost 20 years ago, it didn't look promising that his stab at a lower-budget horror comedy was going straight to Netflix. After all, how could the filmmaker behind slop like Terminator Salvation, This Means War, and 3 Days to Kill actually deliver an entertaining movie? It may have been nothing more than a fluke, but The Babysitter was a surprisingly hilarious, grisly little film, suggesting that, free from his usual studio constraints, the preposterously monikered director can do some fine work. Making the most of an on-the-rise cast, sharp visuals, and gnarly gore, this has cult classic written all over it. 3 is Paddington II. Though 2014's Paddington was a pleasant surprise, the marketing for this sequel suggested it was going to be a phoned-in family sequel that would fail to replicate the original's sweet warmth. But incredibly, Paddington 2 wasn't just a worthy follow-up, it was an effortlessly superior sequel which benefited from improved visuals, more creative direction, and a stronger villain. Hugh Grant is magnificent, and an emotional core that'll have even the most hardened cynics fighting back the tears. What seemed destined to be a lazy sequel fresh off the conveyor belt turned out to be one of the best movie sequels in recent memory. Fans should now be far less skeptical about the inevitable Paddington 3. Number 2 is Wonder Woman. Ahead of Wonder Woman's release, DC's 3 Marvel equivalents, Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and Suicide Squad, were all extremely divisive among critics and audiences alike. So simple probability dictated that number 4 likely wouldn't be that much different. But against all odds, Wonder Woman became one of the year's most entertaining superhero movies. A stylish, fun, and affecting comic book romp, with Gal Gadot decisively proving the doubters wrong in her first full movie as the iconic hero. Some may argue that it feels too much like a Marvel movie, but if that means great tonal balance and a potent sense of hope and optimism, that's surely not such a bad thing. With Wonder Woman the sole shining light in Justice League, it seems that Diana is going to be the DCEU's best bet for the foreseeable future. Don't be surprised if Wonder Woman 2 gives the series its first billion-dollar movie. Moreover, its success has opened a world of possibilities for other female-led superhero films, which the MCU is seriously lacking right now. And in the number 1 spot, it's Cult of Chucky. How many good 7th entries in a horror franchise can you name, especially if they go straight to video on demand? With its low budget and desperate premise, 2 Chuckies for the price of 1, this seemed destined to be a lousy misfire. Though it's a little rough around the edges, there's a surprising amount of charm to Chucky's latest adventure. This is thanks to its emphasis on practical doll effects, brutal gore, and a gleefully subversive meta tone. The Child's Play series has always been somewhat hit and miss, but Cult of Chucky is easily the best entry since the first, and proves that not all cheap horror movie sequels are created equal. If series creator Don Mancini can maintain this level of grisly fun, the future's looking bright for Chucky. So which movies most surprised you with their unexpected awesomeness this year? Shout them out in the comments. We'll set our preconceptions aside and take a look. In the meantime, don't forget to share, rate, and subscribe.
Well, would you look at that? You got all the way to the end of the video and your mother said you'd amount to nothing. What are the chances? While you're here, why not watch one of our other many, possibly quite good channels, or watch another video which will be largely in the same vein as the quality content you've just endured. Go on then.